Welcome back to Later Today. This morning on Your Health, fetal alcohol syndrome. An estimated 126,000 babies are born in the U.S. every year to women who drink too much during pregnancy. And many of these expectant mothers have no idea that they may be poisoning their newborns. Like Kathleen Tavenner Mitchell, who thought she was doing the right thing when she gave up all alcohol except wine.
At 16, when I was in high school, it was just really a permissive time. It was, you know, drugs, sex, rock and roll. If it feels good, do it. And I found myself pregnant. And of course, as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I got clean. I wanted to have a healthy baby and stopped using all drugs, and was certainly with the exception of wine, which I didn't consider as something dangerous to do. I thought of wine as simple as having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. As a matter of fact, the myth was that wine was really good for the baby's blood. My son was born, and we just had so much fun with him. We just loved him to death, and we put him in little tie-dye t-shirts and took him to concerts. And a year later, I found myself pregnant again, and I did the same thing in that pregnancy. As soon as I found out I was pregnant, I stopped using, you know, any kind of drugs, and I would drink wine, and thinking that I was clean. And had a beautiful little girl, and we called her Carly. When she was about maybe a month or so old, she started to have some problems with her ears, and she cried a lot, and she was a much more difficult baby to take care of. Her milestones, you know, were all delayed, so she was always a couple months behind her older brother in terms of walking, talking, and crawling and things like that. But the doctors always told me that it was because she had ear infections and a lot of food allergies, and that's was the source of her problem, and that she would grow out of it. And then when she was about 9 years old, she was seen at a developmental clinic, and they diagnosed her with cerebral palsy. And they said that when she was born, she probably had some cognitive impairments, but they just didn't realize it until now. So it wasn't until she was 16 that I just kind of stumbled upon some information on fetal alcohol syndrome, and I brought her down to Georgetown Hospital in Washington, and indeed they diagnosed her with having full-blown fetal alcohol syndrome. And I'll never forget sitting at this table with all these physicians, these experts, and them telling me that, yes, your daughter has fetal alcohol syndrome. And just, you know, the waves of guilt, like, oh my God, it was from, you know, wine, that, oh my God, that's, you know, what caused her problem.
After Carly was diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome, Kathy discovered that her drinking also may have contributed to the deaths of her 2 other children. Devastated, she admitted to having a drinking problem, got sober, and became a spokesperson for the National Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome. Up next, we'll have important information for all expectant moms out there to keep this from happening to you. Stay tuned. We're back on Later Today, and you just heard the story of Kathy Tavenner Mitchell, who thought drinking wine during pregnancy was really no big deal. But after years of being misdiagnosed, one of Kathy's children was finally found to have fetal alcohol syndrome. Tom Donaldson is the executive director of the National Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome, and he's here with some advice for expectant mothers. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Asher. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, too. You know, it's just heartbreaking to hear that story of Kathy and Carly. And Kathy said she just drank a small amount of wine. How is it that Carly had such major problems?
You know, it was only in 1973, the year Carly was born, that FAS was first identified in the United States. At that point, doctors commonly advised women to drink during pregnancy. Said it had health benefits, as Kathy mentioned in the piece, could be good for the baby's blood. Of course, now we know better. There is no known safe amount of alcohol during pregnancy. In fact, as little as an ounce of alcohol a day can lead to developmental delays and other characteristics of fetal alcohol syndrome.
Well, they say that much of the damage is caused in the first 9 weeks of pregnancy. What does that mean for mothers who really don't realize they're pregnant till maybe 1 or 2 months later? What does that mean for them?
Well, you know, we have to remember that development takes place throughout pregnancy. So at any point during the pregnancy that a woman drinks, there is the potential to interfere with healthy development. But you're right, many women don't know. In fact, maybe most women don't know they're pregnant for a time. And that's why it's very important to get early and regular prenatal care. It's very important for doctors to be able to talk to their patients, women of childbearing age especially, about the potential risk of alcohol.
Especially if you're thinking of getting pregnant, even if you're not pregnant yet, think about it ahead of time, I guess is what you're saying. Now let's talk about some facts about fetal alcohol syndrome, things that people may not know. And you know, we touched on this briefly, there's no known safe level of alcohol use during pregnancy. So best idea, I guess, is just to stay away completely.
That's exactly right, and that's what NOFAS, the National Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome, advises the U.S. Surgeon General and anyone who's done research on the issue, because you know, alcohol is very toxic to human development. All research has shown that. In fact, it's more toxic than other drugs of abuse like cocaine or heroin.
And that's what people don't realize, which brings me to our next tip, which it's the leading known cause of mental retardation and birth defects. That's
exactly right. And in fact, as I said, more so than cocaine, heroin, and FAS is more prevalent than Down syndrome, cystic fibrosis, sudden infant death syndrome combined. And those are more commonly known health issues. So a lot of public awareness needs to be done on this issue. And in fact, we need individuals, we need corporations to make an investment in FAS prevention so we can do that broadly and in a sustained way across the country.
You know, the wild thing is what a lot of people don't realize is that these babies aren't necessarily born to the majority of alcoholic mothers, right?
Well, certainly women who are drinking excessively have a greater risk. But as I said earlier, and as you pointed out, there is no known safe amount. And think of it, any amount of a toxic substance that would be present during human development could pose a risk. And why do it? Why take that risk?
Mm-hmm. Now, Carly wasn't diagnosed with FAS until she was 16 years old. How do you know or have some idea that maybe this is affecting your child? What are the hallmarks of this?
Well, and that's very common. The misdiagnosis or no diagnosis at all gets back to the point I made about educating doctors and health and human service workers to identify the syndrome and be able to set care programs. And that's very important.
Is there a test at all when you have a baby, or even on the fetus for that matter, to see if the child's been affected by FAS?
Well, there's no test during the pregnancy. And no blood tests like other genetic disorders. So it's very difficult to diagnose, and that's why it's very important that all health professionals are aware and they know what to look for, because you need to identify it early so that you can help these children reach their potential. Hey, but the good news is it's completely preventable, absolutely preventable, if we can raise awareness and people can understand the effects of alcohol. I think that people have an idea that alcohol might be risky. But I think some of the things I've mentioned today, they didn't realize. They didn't realize that it's more dangerous than illegal drugs. Mm-hmm. They didn't realize that low doses of alcohol can lead to some of the developmental delays.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's what you pointed out, the severity. What can happen to your child when people don't realize what they're doing to themselves and to their babies? Thank you so much for coming in today. We really appreciate it. Great information from you, Tom Donaldson. Appreciate it. And if you'd like to learn some more about fetal alcohol syndrome, visit our website at latertoday.msnbc.com. And we'll be right back after this. Thanks so much.